Is this, Kaisu, do you know if does this start now or in half an hour? Now.
No.
This is the first Sunday.
Yeah, but the
First,
times on the web were kind of confusing. Glad
uh,
to be here.
Emily needs to know that the
Yeah.
times on the web were confusing. I don't know where Emily is. She's saying
She's
the
there,
time
she's
on the
doing
web was confusing.
Yeah, because
First Sunday is always 10:30 because that's the Dharma talk, and otherwise it's 11 to 12.
well, because it said 11 to 12 meditation, it didn't include the teaching it before that.
Oh, I see.
In
I
some
see.
of the
But
places.
nonetheless, you're here, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everyone. Hi, nice to see you again. Those of you we're seeing again,
Annie,
and
can you
welcome those
pass
who
me
are.
Annie, pass me the clock,
Hi.
please.
What?
Pass me the clock. We're at time already. Thank you.
Okay.
Good morning. Oops, I got hers. No,
But this is.
well, that's,
Wait.
this is mine. Louise, if you're here, I think you want to hear this. Well, I hope she's here. Hi, Jeff. Hi, Kaisu.
Hi, guys. Shall I text Louise? I don't know if she ever.
So, the talk this morning is entitled Softening the Doer, Undoing Aloneness and Meaninglessness.
Louise is here.
So that's a lot. We live in a time when isolation is a huge issue. For many people, these things are the major companions. And there's a fair bit of isolation, and meaninglessness is probably with us since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution as a challenge. We call them the noble principles. So we're talking about, welcome from Seoul. We heard you had a big snowstorm, Ivan.
Oh, wow. Hi.
And gosh, it's probably
And you're up late.
3 o'clock in the morning.
No, it's midnight, right?
Midnight.
The half past midnight. Good for you. Thank you for coming.
So we're going to talk about the three noble principles. In Tibetan, Tampasum is supposed to be the aspect of every practice that we do. But undoing the doer is what I see the three noble principles are all about. The doer, we're all kind of frantic and kind of engaged in addictive behavior. There's a wonderful image in Tibetan teachings of freneticism, and it's of a bear going to a tree and grabbing chipmunks out of the hole in the tree and putting them under its armpit. So it grabs one chipmunk, puts it under its armpit. Then it grabs another chipmunk, opens its armpit. The first chipmunk escapes, puts another chipmunk under there, goes to the hole, grabs a chipmunk, lifts his armpit. The second one escapes, puts a third one under there. Poor bear thinks it's really trying to get ahead of the game, but it always stays the same. And I think a lot of the experiences that we engage in are this kind of addictive behavior of kind of top that, I need more, I had that, I had my Big Mac, now I have to have another Big Mac. And apparently the software engineers on these guys do things in such a way as try to draw us into this kind of addictive behavior. And meditation is a kind of non-addictive, satisfying in and of itself endeavor. And part of it is recognizing that this doer that we all live with is in a way the prince and princess of this doership and the addictive, anxious engagement in over and over activity. So the first part of the Three Noble Principles is to, any practice that we're engaging in, we're doing it for the sake of all sentient beings. And when Lama Tenzin was here recently, he said, you know, when you are practicing, you should imagine all your male relatives to the right and your female relatives to the left. He actually said just be surrounded by beings, but I'm sort of glossing this with how we do foundational practices. We put our enemies in front and all sentient beings behind us. And, you know, if we're meditating in a group, it has a different feel than if we're meditating alone. We're softening the doer. Being not alone, being alone is a kind of, you know, this image of, many of you are too young to appreciate, but John Wayne was this Western hero, always taking on the world, but alone. You know, the heroic individual is a big Western trope. But we are always immersed in relationship. If we're alone and isolated, the doer gets crustier and harder. If we're with others, it softens. So we imagine ourselves surrounded by others as we meditate. I also encourage doing something like taking refuge, where we are acknowledging the Buddha, the Dharma, our community of support, our individual teacher, where we appreciate that we're not doing what we're doing alone, but we're doing it as in a lineage of practice. And that, you know, in the tradition, there's talk of waves of grace, which some people actually experience during ceremonies, during practice, that there are literally waves of grace that pour over us. Waves of grace are kind of the best laundry detergent for the dirt of isolation and hardened self. Grace softens the heart, softens isolation, softens the sense of self, softens the doer. So it's important to place ourselves in a spot where we have received blessings of our teachers, the Buddha, the Dharma, the community of support. It softens us, and then we're surrounded by beings. It softens the doer. The next interesting noble principle is, I'm going to translate it for the moment, non-targeting. You know, get into a state of non-targeting. We go through life targeting everything. Our thought process is always targeting. repetitively and continuously and endlessly targeting. I've got to go shop. I've got to improve this relationship. I did something wrong. I remember so and so. I've got to do this. I've got an appointment. Meditation involves targeting, but one target. So, in understanding the second noble principle, it says no targeting, non-targeting. The first piece of practice is to stop the relentless targeting that we're always doing and just do one targeting. And for beginners, that's a lot. If we can accomplish even that, where we have a focus, we focus on the breath at the nostrils, throat, or in the belly at a spot 3 or 4 finger widths below the navel and 3 or 4 finger widths in, a spot called the dough. We target the experience. And when I teach, what I like to do and emphasize, I follow Ken MacLeod on this. He says, place your attention on the object. That's targeting. That's a single target. But then he suggests, settle into the process of the breath. If you're experiencing the breathing at the spot in your belly, you no longer have a kind of observer-observed duality, which is doership at its best. You try to settle into the experience, or at the throat, or at the nostrils. We settle into the experience of the sensation in the moment that is stimulated by the process of breathing. It's not necessarily easy because we're kind of used to this dualistic observer-observed, doer-done-to duality. But if you play around with this and actually shift from observing the process of breathing from a little bit of a divide to actually sense, what does it actually feel like in my belly, 3 finger widths below my navel, 3 finger widths in from the skin, and move from a kind of distant looking to sensing with immediacy. It's a different experience. And if you do settle in to that experience, you may be aware that there's a lot less doer-observer. There's just knowing. There's knowing and there's being. And you're just being in the experience of the sensation. Now, of course, along the way, and even as you're doing this, there may be thoughts, feelings, images that we all have, especially in initial stages of meditation. And it's okay. You can just let them be. If we get completely lost, we bring our attention back. We place our attention on the experience of the breath. But then we try to settle in to the experience, the sensation. And if it really is going well, that becomes your whole world. When you emerge, you may realize that there was no doer or observer. It was just a being with an experience. It was a being state. It may feel intrinsically interesting. It may feel intrinsically meaningful. But all of this at a kind of quiet level. It's not like bells and whistles are going to be popping and, drum rolls rolling. You're just going to be in a very, very quiet, meaningful, rich include, on some occasions, a sense of profound spaciousness. Dare I say, rewarding spaciousness, mysterious spaciousness. And so, the second noble principle of being without a target, we start with one target, limiting all the targeting that we habitually are used to. And with that one target, we see if we can actually bring our attention to settle into it. And if we settle into our target, there is no more target. There is no more settler. There is no more doer. We softened our doer. And we're experiencing a state of being, perceiving, but without a sense of I am a perceiver and this is what's perceived. It's just being perception. It's being experience, being awareness. And there may be a concomitant experience of large, spacious awareness. And we see when we emerge how much in the aftermath that maintains and how it affects us. And then when we emerge from our meditative practice, we dedicate the merit to all sentient beings. We don't feel like I've just meditated and I've just accumulated merit. We take whatever virtue we feel we have accomplished, whatever goodness and meditative state that we've practiced, and we share it with all sentient beings, friends, neutrals, and enemies, so all may benefit. We, at the beginning, surrounded ourselves with all sentient beings as our surround, and in the end, we offer all to all of beings. So we're not holding on to anything. I've been reading this article in the current Atlantic Monthly, or last month's Atlantic Monthly, by David Brooks, how the Ivy League ruined us, or how the Ivies ruined us, I think he calls it. And in it, he cites a book whose name I'm forgetting. I think it's a book by some German on something like how the state ruined us or something like that. And he cites a German experiment. You love this, Kaisu. I think I sent it to you. He cites this German experiment where the Germans really figured out how to grow trees. And first you clear out all the underbrush, and then you line up your trees in nice, neat rows, and you plant a forest. So they did this. They planted their neat rows of trees and cleared out all the underbrush. And lo and behold, all the neat rows of trees kind of died and withered. Moral of the story, trees need underbrush. Practice needs accessories. We sit down to meditate. It's not just the act of meditation that is important. It's kind of the context. Some people like to have a sweet altar. It's very nice. It's helpful, very appropriate. We have an altar here, we have an altar side. It creates a context. We're acknowledging all of our lineage of teachers with the tree of refuge. It's a big part of our practice. We have statues embodying enlightened principles and enlightened beings. It's a big part of our practice. We're not worshiping idols as my Jewish ancestors would depict it. We're recognizing that there are beings of superior capacity who inspire us, who bless us, who support us, and lead us towards a meaningful vision of life, of open-heartedness, of tenderness towards ourselves and tenderness towards others. That's part of the accessorizing of meditation. It's very, very important elements of meditation. In the three noble principles, 2 out of 3 are not even practice of meditation. They're the contextualization of our practice. They are the support that allow us to cook a very, very complicated meal called meditative practice. We need the right ingredients, we need the right kitchen, we need the right tools, we need the right everything. And some of that right stuff has to do with softening our sense of being a doer. I mean, a big goal in, if you look at the philosophy of the practice of meditation, it's often summarized in terms of diminishing or eradicating dualistic mind and eradicating holding to a sense of self. Doership is the embodiment of everything that takes us in the wrong direction. And we all know that it feels enormously weighty to feel like we are the responsible doer taking care of things. I'm a treasurer in an organization. I've got all of these responsibilities. I'm a doer. I'm a scientist, I'm a teacher, I'm a therapist, I'm an artist. I've got to make things happen. I'm a doer. How different it is in meditation. We start off, it's true, we have a goal. we wish to arrive at something larger, deeper, more meaningful, more fulfilling, we wouldn't be doing it if we didn't have a goal. We are doers when we start doing meditation. But the practice is to soften doership. And the teaching on the Three Noble Principles is an amazing condensation of an enormous amount of wisdom into the simple idea of we surround ourselves with others as we are meditating. We acknowledge our teachers, and as we are meditating, we start with placing our attention on an object, namely the breath or the syllable hong hong. You know, when we're chanting hong hong, we chant the syllable twice. We're told to merge our mind, our breath, sound, our hearing, all into the experience of home. It affects the body, so we're aware of the body. And if you really not only place your attention on the home home, but settle into the process, it's a different kind of experience. And if you might, on certain occasions, notice that even within the sounding and the reverberation, there's a co-arising of an experience of deep spaciousness, deep, meaningful spaciousness. There's sound and there's spaciousness. There's sound in silence. Now, for those of you who are familiar with a lot of Buddhist material, this is what's written about in the Heart Sutra, the perfection of wisdom material. Sound is emptiness. Emptiness is sound. Sometimes we have an experience of that. We're not trying to make it happen at the moment that it happens. There is intentionality in beginning to engage in our paths of practice. But then there's the fruitional experience of sounding and spaciousness. Or we've settled into the experience of breathing, and there's experience and there's spaciousness. And at the end, we dedicate. We don't hold on to it as some kind of king of virtue. We let everything go of our virtue and we share it with all sentient beings. So those are the Three Noble Principles. Motivation for all. Settling into our practice in the middle. Non-targeting. Start with a target and then settle into what we've targeted to the point where there's no sense of a doer, and we dedicate. And so with that, we'll conclude the morning teaching on Sunday, and we may need to do some brief shift for our meditation practice. It'll take just a few seconds to shift
And you
that.
can take a moment to stretch if you like, as we actually engage these three noble principles.
Are you going to lead?
Am I not?